Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special edition of Between a Pot and a Hard Place. I'm Stephen Colton. I'm waiting for Chris Kirkpatrick. He may or may not be joining us tonight, which is totally fine. We recorded an episode already last night. Um, I've kind of had some trouble here lately, and we've kind of taken a break on the podcast. We've done a couple, but then we've waited, and we're not going to go full force until January again. Um, but we have a big episode coming up in January. This I am treating as our season finale. I've been doing this podcast now um, just short of a year, about 11 months. And I was going to take a break. So probably for the next 2 weeks, there might be an episode next week, which will take place before this one. I know it's kind of confusing. I wanted to do this one live because it meant something to me. The feeling was real. And now I don't know if anyone's going to be watching this live or not. If they're not, that's cool. If they are, awesome. I didn't really promote it or anything. It kind of the last minute decision to do live. I, had the thought of doing an episode the night for sure, and I was going to just record it for later, but I really wanted to do it live for some reason. Something told me to do it live, to capture my, I don't know. It's something different. Like, it's live. Anyone could be watching at any moment. And it just kind of creates a different feel to it. It keeps me on my toes. Is that the expression? I can't remember. But anyway, yeah. So this is a date you'll see on the screen here, December 14th, 2019. That was the day my father passed away. Today's date is December 24th, 2020. It has been 1 year exactly to the day today since his passing, and today's been kind of a rough day. It has been a challenge. It's not been as bad as I thought it would be. Honestly, for the first few months, it was rough, into like January, February. And then I finally started to settle and I realized, oh, COVID. And so all the chaos from that happened. And now we're in a situation where it's a year later and I realized that I might not have grieved properly. I may not have, dealt with this in the appropriate manner. And I didn't really know how to do that. Like, how do you grieve your father? How do you process that? For the longest time, I think I just blocked it out and stuck it in the back of my mind and just left it there until recently. I had a situation where I changed jobs, and that was stressful. Yeah, I was reminded of my father, and I kind of, like I said, I kind of blocked it out for the most part of the year. And lately, over the last couple of months, it's really hit me. And today, I spoke with someone a while back who said, because the day was approaching and they were like, look, do something to honor him. I'm like, I don't know what to do. And they're like, well, just, play his favorite songs or watch a movie, something that, he would have done. And so today, I did a little bit of cleaning today and a little bit yesterday. I'm going to be having a friend move in coming up soon. And that is a new experience. Well, it's not a new experience. It's something that I have to get used to again, and I haven't done in a while. So, it's something to readjust. It's a readjustment. My words are scrambled. It's like a new adjustment that I have to kind of get reacclimated with. And so I've been trying to clean, and you all can't really see. You wouldn't really know, but all this countertop here, that's pretty, you've got some cleaning supplies here. A lot of that yesterday was just junk. There were like action figures, which weren't junk, but it was just a clutter of stuff. And now it's cleared out. I started doing some dishes over here. I was blocked for the last year. I kind of froze, and it's kind of like Groundhog Day. Every day outside of my home was different, and I would go to work, different situations every day. But coming home, it was the same thing every day. I would binge watch something, I would play a game, I would whatever it may be. It was the same thing, and so now it's going to change. And with that, I have to change mentalities. And I had, bouts of depression and anxiety throughout this year, and most recently was, a lot more. I had an episode. I don't want to call it an episode because it's not like I wasn't like hospitalized or anything like that. It was just something I was dealing with that just kind of hit me hard. And that happened around October and then into November and then the earlier part of December. Then I started this more recent job. And, I cost myself a job that was great because of my anxiety. And so I don't really beat myself up because, someone else told me, learn to forgive yourself and be a little more. I think it was Chris that might have said that, on our discussion last night, who, kind of give yourself a little bit more credit and don't beat yourself up too much. And I'm trying to do that. And, today was just an interesting day. Like I said, I woke up, I started doing some dishes and stuff over here. And as I'm doing it, I put on a record. It was, a record that I like to listen to with my dad, and it was one he had when he was younger. But of course, this record was really it was a reprint of an original record. And if you know records like vinyl albums, they've kind of had this resurgence in popularity and this nostalgia, of like, yeah, let's listen to records, let's get records. And so that's what I did. I got a Kiss album, Kiss Destroyer, and I purchased that. I want to say it was over a year ago, and I listened to it today. And there were a few times. The last time, not the last time, but memories of washing dishes. I would put on the record, come in here, wash dishes or whatever while the record's playing, and my dad would be in the next room, maybe playing Candy Crush or something on his phone, while he's listening to the record with me and singing along. And it's just so nostalgic, man. And I'll tell you, I Kiss Destroyer, if anybody out there is a Kiss fan, which I'm not, this isn't like a Kiss podcast, but Destroyer, the first song on the album, Detroit Rock City, and it starts off, if you remember like the radio version or a CD version, perhaps you would hear a little bit of like a radio in the background, and then it would go straight to the guitar. But in the original album version, which this is a reprint, but the original album version, it's the guy kind of moving around his apartment or whatever and turning on the radio, the TV, whatever it is. And then it leads into that. And as soon as that guitar and drum beat, it got to me. Like, I thought about my dad hardcore. Listen to that entire album. And then, of course, with vinyl albums, halfway through, you got to flip it, kids. Now, I grew up in the cassette and CD age, but I'm still familiar with vinyl. And so I flipped the record and went back to the dishes, listened more, and then the record ended. And I kind of took a break for a little bit, and then did a little bit more cleaning, wiped the stove off, wiped some of the countertops off. I've got a lot of work to do because, like I said, I shut down for a year emotionally. So there's a lot of cleaning to do. But I'm kind of proud of myself, and I had a rough day. It's not been impossible, but it's been one of those days that's like, I didn't think it was going to be as hard. I mean, I thought it was going to be harder than what it was, but it was still hard. I had random bouts of emotion throughout the day. And then, I stopped cleaning for the day and went, and, kind of made myself some lunch and sat down and watched one of my dad's favorite movies, a movie he always wanted me to watch with him, which I love, but it's one of those movies for me that I can only watch it like once in a while. One of the original stoner movies, that being Cheech and Chong's Up in Smoke. I would hear stories my dad would tell me about going to the theater. I think he'd mentioned like his older brother. The two of them would go, and I think he said they would sneak into the theater back in the 70s when the movie was new. I think it came out in 78, maybe 79. I don't remember exactly the year. It wasn't around then. That was a little less than 10 years before my time, but they would sneak in. They would, they would smoke a little bit, and then they would sneak into the theater and watch that movie. And, he loved the movie. I've got the DVD here, which used to be his. I don't know if I bought it for him or if he bought it for himself. I can't remember, but I would watch it with him sometimes. And so today I had a goal of listening to some of his music, not his music, but listening to music he liked, and watching a film that he liked, which of course Up in Smoke was the first choice in my mind. And I'll tell you, when I put that movie on, I'm sitting here eating lunch and I'm just like taking a bite, and all of a sudden it's just like, because it was the voice of Tommy Chong singing the song in the intro to that song in the movie. Before Lowrider plays, if you're familiar with the movie, with YouTube, I don't know, like content copyright laws. I don't even want to sing the song. Maybe saying a few words spoken might not flag it. I want to be careful though. But if Lowrider, that plays, but the song that I'm talking about is a song that they sing in the beginning of that movie. The voice of Tommy Chong. It was the theme song essentially for the movie. It plays at the very open and it plays at the close, at the very end of the film. And so basically, Up in Smoke, To Where My Money Goes, such and such. And then that song, when I heard that song hit, it just boom, it got me, because my dad would sit there and watch that movie and sing along to it. And of course, he partook in a little bit, I'll say that. And so he would do that while he watched the movie. And it really made me feel warm inside, and I watched the movie all the way through. Stacy Keach playing Sergeant Stedenko, and, Cheech Marin, Tommy Chong, and so many others that I don't really know the names of, but I could see them and recognize them. And the movie, if you guys don't know, the basic plot is Cheech and Chong. It's their first film. So it's their first, feature film. And if you know Cheech and Chong, they had a ton of films. But this being the first, it was, I don't know if it was one of my dad's, I know it was one of his favorites. I don't know if it was his absolute favorite, but it was one of them. And it was one of those movies that kind of took him back, and now it does that for me, but it doesn't take me back to the same place it took him, because obviously that was a different time and I wasn't around, but it takes me back to a place with my dad, and nostalgia, and just remembering him and remembering the happy times that he had, telling me stories of watching the movie before I was even around. And so it really connected. But the plot, it was the two main characters, the title characters, Cheech and Chong, in pursuit of some marijuana, right? And I've never really been a big I've never been that big on it, myself. I just sorry, one moment. I just got an email from Chris. It's funny. Okay, sorry about that, folks. There was a little miscommunication. I come on here at what time is it? It's around 8:30 my time, and of course he's on the West Coast, so it's 5:30 his time. We had discussed this last night when we recorded an episode, and we were like, "Look, I want to do an episode." Forgive me, folks. Lifesaver mints, breath savers, if you will. Another connection to my dad. He used to eat these like crazy sometimes. He would also eat crybabies, the little gums. There used to be bags around here somewhere, but they had been sitting so long they were bad and stale. So I threw them out a while back. I was going to buy some today, but I couldn't find any. But I did find the breath savers, which were really good stuff. I love them. Anyway, so Chris might be coming on here in a minute. But yeah, there was a little bit of miscommunication. We had spoke about it, and we were like, "Look, how about 8:30?" Which is, I don't have a watch. In about 5 minutes. I'd forgotten and went live like 15 minutes ago. Whatever. It's cool, because when he comes on, if he does, then we'll talk a little bit more. I might go over some of this stuff again. But yeah, we'll see. What was I? Oh yeah, Up in Smoke. So yeah, the Up in Smoke plot was it's well, Cheech and Chong in the movie don't know each other yet. They haven't met. So it starts off with I believe it's Chong first. It's sad because I just watched the movie today. But anyway, we got Chris coming in. Here we go. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, it's going good. How are you doing?
Pretty good. That's my fault. I have to apologize because I remembered that after you sent that last email, I was like, oh yeah, we did say 5:30, 8:30. And so I went on like 15 minutes ago, and I've just been talking about the day. It's not really been a big thing, which is really what this episode was about. And I wanted to do a live one tonight just because, I don't know, I probably won't get any viewers tonight because I haven't really promoted a live episode, but I don't know.
Well, you never know.
Yeah, you never know. I think the knowing it's live and I explained this a little bit ago, but knowing it's live kind of makes it feel a little bit different. At least for me. Like I'm like, ooh, anybody can join on right now and catch me and then see me, and I don't know. I'm kind of treating it as like
afraid is going to catch you.
Well, I don't know. Maybe the Facebook police are like, he's on YouTube. There he is. Go get him.
Right. I mean, they are everywhere.
I don't know. I don't know. I kind of felt like doing a live version. And
yeah, I mean, I know that this. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm kind of treating this as like a season finale, but even though I'm not gonna not do any more for the year, it's weird because it's like, how many shows do you see a season finale and then you see more episodes after the finale? I don't know.
Right.
It's kind of dumb, but I don't know. Maybe it won't be
a finale. Season finale for the sake of having a season finale.
Yeah, and it probably will be, I don't know. I might not do one for the next couple of weeks, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes because January, in about 2 weeks, we're going to be all good and clear on Facebook and things will be looking good again. So I thought about maybe just wait until the 2 weeks and then say season premiere, or just keep doing it and then post the other ones later on. And I mean, all of the great shows have continuity errors anyway, so it's
right. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily the model we want to follow, but
no.
So yeah, I mean, so for me, I just found out that I actually get the next 3 weeks off. So
oh, nice.
Yeah, so I'm going to be very available for the next 3 weeks. So if you want to keep on going, I can certainly commit.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and say this then, folks. This is not the season finale. This is season finale part 1 of 7.
Right.
Because when I started, yeah, haha, December Fools. When I first did the description of the video and creating the stream, I was like, season finale, and wrote this long thing. But I'm like, you know what? No, you're right. I mean, if you're available, and it's like, why not talk for the next couple of weeks? And there's still a little bit of content that we recorded that I haven't posted yet. And I didn't want to go into the Facebook thing too much, but it was suggested to me that maybe you don't go too heavy on the podcast thing until maybe everything's all clear. Because Facebook being one of the biggest, promotional tools people use, if I don't use it, I'd contemplated not even using Facebook for this anymore, just going on Twitter and YouTube, but then so many more people have access to Facebook. A lot of people use Twitter, but I think that many more are on Facebook. So I've kind of dabbled a little bit. I think we did, one live show a couple of weeks ago, and then kind of went to recording and then recorded another. So, I mean, I don't know. I kind of like, I'm not in trouble with YouTube. So it may be better to just not do live ones, but I don't know. For this one, I kind of just wanted to have a live feel to it, I guess. I don't know.
I think that we're good.
And so far this episode,
I first wanted to say thank you just for inviting me to be a part of this. This is a special day for you, or maybe special is not the right word for it. But it is an important day And
Right.
so, um, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. I
I
think I
mean,
lost what I was going to say there. Hmm.
I just been talking about the first few minutes. I was just talking about the day and kind of what I did, kind of going over it again. I was just talking about how I, did some cleaning and everything, and how I'd basically been shut down for a year and didn't do much. And I would leave the
Yeah,
house and my day would be different outside of home, but at home, my day was the same every day. I kind of compared it to Groundhog Day. It's like wake up, if there's no work involved, wake up, eat, binge watch, sleep, and that's pretty much all I did for the last year for the
yeah,
most part. And I realized, I'm having a friend move in next month, and I'm like, I got to get this place cleaned up a little bit because it's just been me. I have no one else to impress or no one to answer to. Okay, I've got to change a few things. So I get up today and I have a record player, and this is random going from cleaning to a record player, but I have a record player that I found at a Goodwill or something for pretty cheap. And when my dad was still living, we went to Walmart, maybe not constantly, but every now and then. And I noticed that they had started reissuing old vinyl albums. And I thought, that's really cool. I want to get a record player. So I got the record player. And then at Walmart one day, I bought a Kiss album. It's a reissue Kiss album. He grew up on Kiss as a teenager and everything. And I'm like, okay, that's something we can listen to together. And I enjoy it. And so there were a few times in the past where I would like say clean and play that record while he was also here and kind of singing along to it. And so today, that's what I did. I woke up, put that record on, and started cleaning, and kind of took me back to those moments. Um, and then I, ate some lunch after a bit of cleaning, and then I put on one of his favorite movies that he always wanted me to watch with him, but I was like, maybe not today. He was a big, I'll just say this, I kind of went over a little bit already, but I'll say, he was a big Cheech and Chong fan.
okay.
And so, yeah, he enjoyed those days fairly well.
He
And he
was
would
an
tell
Up
me
in Smoke. He liked Up in Smoke.
that's exactly the movie. Yes.
Yeah.
Now I've got a few DVDs here that he had of their films. That it was like 2 packs where it's like Up in Smoke and Still Smoking. And then there was another one that's Cheech and Chong's next movie, and then another movie. They had like 6 or 7 movies maybe. But I watched that movie today. And then like the opening scenes and the first songs playing, I'm just like, oh my God, it took me back again. And
Yeah.
but yeah, and then I went, I didn't want to go alone. I wanted to go visit his grave, at least for a moment. I didn't want to spend a lot of time. I just kind of wanted to be there for a minute. But I didn't really want to drive myself or go alone. So my uncle actually came. It was my dad's brother, his youngest brother. He came and picked me up, and I felt bad. I was like, "Oh man, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to like bother everybody." And he's like, "No, it's fine." And we rode out there and kind of spent a few minutes there, and then he brought me back home, and I don't know really what I did after that. I think I just kind of relaxed and watched some YouTube or something until I jumped on here. But overall, the day wasn't that bad. It wasn't as emotional as I thought it would be. I had moments throughout the day where, especially listening to the record and watching the movie, those things hit me more than actually going to his grave, which I thought was kind of strange. I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe I let it all out during the day, and then by the time I got there, it's like, oh, okay, we're good. The one thing that was the strangest, and I don't know, a lot of people believe different things. I don't know if I didn't used to really believe in like signs from the universe or whatever, or maybe a sign from God or something, like a literal sign, a physical sign on a phone pole. Because I had been stressed lately about, oh my gosh, am I gonna survive? Am I doing a good job? Like I've got to learn how to like be an adult again, and all this stuff. And I'm thinking these things in the car on our way to the cemetery, and I look up at a stop sign, and there's literally a sign on a pole that says, "You're doing great." That's all it says. No other context. I've never seen that sign before. I was like, okay then. And it kind of set the tone for the rest of the day for me, I think.
Yeah.
And that
Thank
was
you, Sign.
yeah, and I mean, I don't
Yeah.
really see that kind of stuff happen that much. And so I don't know if it was like some higher power or anything, God or the universe or whatever, showing it to me. But I do believe certain things like that happen and not by accident, because it's like, what are the chances I'm going to need to see
Yeah.
something like that? And then boom, right there it is. I just happened to glance over and see it. I don't think that's
Yeah,
I don't think it's
I
an
often
accident.
believe that we get what we need.
Mm,
You know that um, I've certainly seen. I had times in my life where um, I was looking for a sign, and it came. I was looking for an answer, and the same kind of thing, just kind of hit me like right between the eyes.
yeah.
I've never really thought of myself as being somebody that um, is superstitious, but in our
Mm,
family, um, there are two things that when we see them, they either make us laugh or they make us think about my wife's dad who passed. Um, at his funeral, there had been this fly that had been buzzing around. It was sort of like the Mike Pence fly, right? It was buzzing around um, and bugging everybody. And somebody had made a comment that that fly was Gary, right?
mm,
And so ever since then, whenever we see a fly that just won't leave us alone, right? Um, somebody will make a comment, "Oh, that's Gary messing around," and the same thing um, with butterflies. That
mm.
sometimes we'll see a butterfly and it will just be like a reminder. Um, oh, maybe he's up there watching us.
Yeah.
So
I had a moment like that a while back. I don't know if I talked about it on any of the podcast episodes. And there was no like other connection to my dad, but it was one of those weird things. I stepped outside my front porch one day, and there was a small bird. I don't really know what type of bird it was. I don't think it was a robin, but it was some sort of, you know, standard bird. I don't really know much about birds. I know a cardinal when I see one because that's the North Carolina state bird, and that's really all I know. A blue jay, I can tell. Woodpeckers, like, but other small birds, I don't really know what they are. But the point is, I walked out and I saw it, and I'm like, oh, it's gonna fly away. It just stood there. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Like, hey, bird, how are you? Tried to talk to it. And every time I spoke, it would turn around and look at me. I stopped talking, it would turn away.
really,
I came inside to get my phone. I was like, let me take a picture of this bird. This is kind of key, kind of like neat. I come outside and I opened and shut the door 2 or 3 times, once going out, once coming in to get the phone, and once going back out. Bird stayed there the entire time. I walked within a few, like maybe, I don't know, like a foot away from it. It just stayed. It didn't fly away. I'm like, is it hurt? What's going on? It wasn't until I got out into the yard to kind of take a bigger picture that then flew away. I thought it's maybe that's my dad saying hello. Like, I didn't know what to think because I'd never in my life been that close to a bird that just stood there and like listened to me talk. And at first I thought maybe its wing was broken or something, because why won't it fly away? But no, as soon as I walked away, it flew off like no problem. So it was kind of strange. And my dad didn't really have any kind of like, love for birds necessarily or anything like that. And there wasn't like a crazy bird story that was flying around or anything like that. But it was like a weird moment, and I haven't really had anything like that since. I'll see little squirrels running around, and he used to sit outside and throw them peanuts. He would literally go to the store and buy bags of unsalted peanuts to throw to the squirrels. And so every now and then I'll see a squirrel look up at me like, "Hmm?" I'm like, is that the same one?
did he
Is that
throw
the
them
same one?
squirrels or did he throw them at the squirrels?
He didn't throw them at them. He threw them out to them. And he would try to get them to come
Like,
up. And like, we didn't really want them to eat directly out of our hand because, you know, obvious
yeah,
reasons, you get bitten by a squirrel. But we got to the point where one would sit up on the railing and just kind of look at us, and we would toss it down at our feet, and he would walk up and grab it and run. But he always liked to say, like, this is my buddy. This is the same squirrel. I'm like, do you really think that's the same one? He was like, yeah. And then he didn't show up for a while. And we got to know that same squirrel because there was some sort of injury on its tail where it was like missing a part of the fur or whatever, or the hairs. And that one kind of disappeared for a while. So we don't know if that got killed, if it ran off or what. But I don't know. I always think of them when I see squirrels is the point, I guess. So squirrels and that one bird. But yeah, that's pretty much been my day. Uh, I don't really know what else to say, honestly, about it. Just readjusting to life, I guess. Finally
yeah,
processing everything.
yeah. It sounds like you are at least coming to grips with it and taking steps to move on.
Because honestly, today alone, I've been more productive as far as cleaning or feeling productive at home than I have all year. And I don't know what it is, but maybe it's the knowing that there's going to be a friend moving in and that'll help me catch up financially and, dealing with today being officially 1 year and kind of getting that off my chest. It's like, okay, it's real now. It's been a year. It's kind of like on Legends of Tomorrow where moments in time set in. And this is like that moment where it finally set in. Like I felt like if I had a time machine 2 months ago, I could have changed it and it would have been okay. It wouldn't have messed up the timeline. But today, if I change it, it'll screw everything up. So that was just a weird way I saw it in my head. But I mean, I kind of really want to go back and watch Crisis again, but I haven't got there. I don't want to jump ahead. And I know it's kind of strange. We always end up talking about Flash somehow, no matter what the topic is. But yeah.
It's been one of the things in our relationship.
Yeah. And well, Crisis more specifically, because when we talked to Mark Guggenheim, and I told you this before that, I think my father passed away in December. Well, today, 14th, and Crisis came on. What was it? Early December, or maybe like the second week of December, whatever it was. And then they had their break and didn't come back until I think, what was it, January for the end of Crisis. And so I compared that to my life. It was like, as soon as I'm almost convinced, maybe not really, but that when Crisis happened, it affected our real world. Boom. I don't know. Something else happened in Flash 2 that was supposed to be set in 2020. I think it was the original particle accelerator blew up in 2020 before Eobard Thawne went back in time and changed everything and became I think that was the date. It was 2020 was when the original accelerator went off because he wanted Flash to become Flash sooner. So maybe we're all suffering from that explosion as well. And we don't know the differences because the timeline has changed. But anyway, that's all crazy. But no, Crisis, it was something that watching the end of Crisis hit me more because I was dealing with a new world. And so it's something I'm always going to love about that crossover. It takes me back to that time and really, I guess, watching the fictional characters live out the happier days that after all the darkness, even though it's fictional, it kind of sends you that message like, look, things will be okay at some point. It's okay for us, and we just destroyed the world and recreated it, so you'll be fine. And so, yeah, I got to finish Elseworlds first, but I didn't watch any today or last night. I need to get back to that because I can suffer more Nora Allen, West Allen, whatever her name is, crying about, and I can suffer through the rest of that, which she's not a terrible actress. She does a good job at being whiny, but I need to watch her in something else, like see something serious, which, I mean, I did like her in Smallville. She portrayed the Plastique character in Smallville. So that was cool.
She did.
Yeah, Smallville's Plastique was a little different. I mean, personality-wise. They had one in the Arrowverse Flash. But yeah, she originally played Plastique. It might have been, it was one main episode and then the Villain of the Week episode. And then she came back later as a part of their version of Suicide Squad with Amanda Waller and the Checkmate and all that stuff. She was part of that towards the end of the series. But it was a totally different character, but I didn't notice at first that was the same girl until she came. Well, when she came on Flash, I'm like, wait a minute, she looks really familiar. And then I realized that's the girl from Smallville. And it was crazy. But yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. The actress who plays Nora is actually older than both Grant Gustin and the lady who plays Iris.
Yeah, that's funny too. And it's kind of scary how much she looks just like the two of them would if they had a kid in real life, it would look like her.
Yeah, it's just good casting.
Yeah, and I do hope they bring her back at some point. I mean, I just don't. I hope they don't get to a point where they end up having children and then showing flash forwards and it be a completely different kid. She looks different because the timeline changes and all that. at least bring her back in. Maybe play a different character. Maybe not name her Nora anymore. Maybe call her Jane or whatever. But have the same girl at least, because there's no better casting for those two people's child like that. Perfect casting, I think. But yeah, I did hear that I haven't read any news much, but I saw a few little rumors or little tidbits about Flash season 7, and supposedly they're filming flashback scenes set in 1997.
In 1997.
That's what I've heard. And I think it was a video about it. I don't really know. I didn't watch the video, but I just saw like the headlines, like Flash scenes filmed based in 1997. I'm thinking, like, what was relevant in 1997 within that universe? Was Barry even born at that point? Like, how old is this Barry? I can't remember exactly. I think he was 10 years old as a young kid when his mother was killed. So, and that was supposed to be, I forget what year. Like 2000, I think it was. So yeah, he would have been alive. He would have been like 6 or 7 years old, probably. I don't know.
His parents would have been alive.
Yeah, his parents would have been alive, and he probably would have been happy. So I don't know. Maybe it's got to be something Thawne related. I think maybe that's the first moment that he finds out where Barry's from, or something, and then he leaves and comes back later. I don't know. I've got to look more into it because I'm really interested in 1997, like why. But hopefully it's something great. I mean,
97 was a good year for me because that's when I graduated from high school.
Yeah, I was a little bit younger, but 1997 was probably one of my favorite years overall. 98, 99, like those 3 years. Mostly just because like pop culture and entertainment in general was so good in those 3 years. I grew up as like a wrestling fan. I liked watching wrestling when I was a kid.
Okay.
And 97 to 99 was like the most entertaining for me because like wrestling was so popular at that point. You would see crossover on like late night talk shows. And that's how I started watching late night talk shows. They had a storyline where, the big bad Hulk Hogan, he was a bad guy and he took over the Tonight Show and beat up Jay Leno. And it's like, this is my show now. And for like after that commercial break, he's like, hell, welcome to the Hulk Hogan show. Here we are. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is real. This is actually happening. And then so I kept watching the Tonight Show to see this Hulk Hogan coming back tonight. And then from then on, I just kept watching late night. I haven't watched it lately over this last year, but that's where I fell in love with late night talk shows. And they actually did a wrestling match with Jay Leno, tag teaming with another wrestler to fight against Hulk Hogan and someone else. And it was just some big, stupid, crazy thing that they did. But it was what they did back then in the 90s. Like, there were so many celebrity crossovers and the popularity was huge. That's since died off a little bit. I'm not so much a fan anymore, but that alone was like one of the things I remember the most. And another thing, as a kid, I was a huge like fan of the Power Rangers. Like that's still going today for the kids today. They still have like every year there's something new part of that. And then, a lot of the movies in the 90s. I was a big fan of Tommy Boy with Chris Farley and David Spade. Saturday Night Live for me at the time, that was my Saturday Night Live because that's what was on when I was a kid. And had so many of the greats like David Spade, Norm Macdonald, Chris Farley, those guys. Those were some of my favorites. So it's like, man, like Adam Sandler too. Like all these people, I'm like, oh my gosh, so much good stuff and entertaining things came out of like the mid to late 90s. I don't know. It was just something, and video games too. Like there's so much, like all these video games started popping off. And that's another memory with my dad. I remember when I think it was 96 or 97, he bought me the first Sony PlayStation. And I remember going to Toys R Us with him to pick it out. And I couldn't have it yet because it was like it was either Christmas or birthday or whatever. But I remember going to pick it out. And I'm like so excited, like, yes, oh my gosh, yes, this is amazing. Because it was a brand new thing and it was exciting. I went to the first wrestling show that I remember going to was with my dad in 1997. here in town, and it was a fun experience. It wasn't like a televised thing or anything, but still, it was fun to get to see it up close in person for the first time. I might have gone when I was younger, like 5 or 6. But what was that?
Do you remember who you saw?
I don't remember exactly, but it was '97. So a few of the big names weren't there because it was a small town, and I think they had a bigger show somewhere else in a bigger city, like maybe Charlotte, North Carolina. And so not a lot of the major names were around here because they save those for the big shows and the televised shows. But I remember there was no Hulk Hogan. That was like the time he was like the big bad guy and everything, but he wasn't there. But a lot of the younger guys and what they call the lucha libre, like the Mexican style wrestling, the masked wrestlers, a
Right.
lot of them were there, and they had this. I remember it was like a 6-person like tag team kind of thing where it had a lot of those guys involved. So there's a lot of high flying and craziness. I'm just like, whoa, this is so cool. And I know another guy that I used to like. This has turned into like a wrestling podcast. Like
Right.
Diamond Dallas Page, he was one of those
Mhm.
guys that I really liked, and um, and then Sting, who was basically the Crow, like their version of the Crow. And but back in the '80s, he was like the flat top, blonde hair, bright colors, and he kind of went through like a different change in like '96, '97, and went like all dark and would hide in the rafters and have a baseball bat. So he was there. That was really cool to see him for the first time. And I remember I don't know why I remember this, but I had some kind of snack cake or something. I dropped it. And I couldn't reach it because it was way like probably 10 or 15 feet down. I'm like, oh man. And there was some security guard with the wrestling organization. I was like, hey, can you hand me that? And the guy, he threw it back up to me and I caught it. I was like, yeah. And it was just exciting because I was like, I saw that security guy on TV one time. And then there was a little like thin curtain behind where he was standing, and you could kind of see a few of the wrestlers standing back there, kind of peeking through, watching. And then a few minutes later, they ran out to like attack somebody. So I was like, hey, they knew what was going to happen. So I always kind of knew it was planned and kind
Right.
of predetermined, but it was still fun to see.
I think that was always the thing about professional wrestling was that we knew that it was fake and yet it was still fun.
Yeah, I could still have fun watching it today. It's just the creativity behind it is kind of gone for me. Like the storylines, because in the '90s they were really pushing the envelope. They were really doing crazy things because there was like two major corporations kind of battling against each other. So one week they would do something, then the next week someone else would have to top that. So there was at one point like gosh, I don't know how old she was, but she was an elderly woman who was I guess a wrestling legend in her own right in ladies wrestling years before, like 30, 40 years before that. She gave birth to a hand on national television, which is one of those weird shock humor kind of things. It was like kind of like a Jerry Springer type of storyline.
Right.
And that wasn't so much like, yay, but it was like, what? And so it was that unpredictability of like, you don't know what's going to happen week to week. Some of that stuff wasn't like the greatest because it was like, why would you even go there? They had some very questionable storylines, but they tried. And I always like the realistic storylines that you really felt like, okay, I know this is supposed to be scripted, but this part might be kind of real. Like when they would tell you, kind of like when they invaded the Tonight Show, Jay Leno, like things like that is what I really liked because you didn't see it coming and then it felt real. It had that sense of like urgency behind it. Like, oh, this isn't just a matter of like you're going to win your championship. No, this is different. This is real. There's some bad blood
Right.
between those guys for real, and they made you believe it sometimes. But today, it's not like that. It's like, I don't like you. I'm going to kick your butt, and it's like, really, that's all you can say. Like, it's more PG, because advertisers and political correctness, and I get it, but not the shock so much, but the unpredictability and the wow factor and the excitement of it's kind of fizzled out for me a little bit. But I can still appreciate the choreography and like the dedication it takes to actually put on a match and kind of not kill yourself because it's there's a documentary that I've always loved that I might try to watch again later, called Beyond the Mat. And it took them a few years to really produce that documentary, but they followed along with a few wrestlers to show like kind of the dark side of things, not dark side, but like the real side. This is what you go through. You know, some wrestlers develop drug problems, and some, you know, had so many injuries that, you know, like brain damage and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the toll it really takes on some of them. And there's that mindset of people out there that's like, oh, that's completely fake, they're fine. But then it's like, it may be like scripted, but it's not completely fake. I mean, look at this guy. He's paralyzed now. You know, there was a guy who just can't remember his name, but he had just kind of started to get his groove, and one of those freak accidents happened, and he was paralyzed, and he, you know, never walked again. He's still alive, I think, today, but still, that can happen.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And one of my favorite wrestlers in that time, you know, Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was like this tough guy from Texas, you know, would beat anybody up, was never afraid. Same thing happened to him. He wasn't paralyzed, but he did have a pretty bad neck injury, and it was never the same. You know, he eventually retired, but maybe sooner than he would have. And that kind of stuff happens. So I can, you know, I can still watch that and appreciate that kind of chance that they take and the sacrifices they make for entertainment.
It's funny because, you know, you got into it in the 90s. For me, I got into it in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the things that my brother and I, we would sit and watch wrestling. That was back when it was the WWF.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, original Hulk Hogan before he turned bad. You know, you had Andre the Giant, Macho Man Randy Savage, Jake the Snake Roberts with the Snake.
Oh yeah, with the Snake.
You had Hacksaw Jim Duggan. You had the Paul Bearer and the Undertaker.
Oh yes.
You know, when I think of professional wrestling, you know, those are the ones that I think about.
I know all of those names. It's funny. Like I don't remember. I never watched original Hulk Hogan because obviously I think that was a little bit before my time. Well, I was probably born, but as an infant, I don't remember much. But all the other ones, with the exception of Andre the Giant, I know all of them. I don't know them, you know, but you know, I used to subscribe to what's now called the WWE Network. Which was what used to be the WWF. They have this network now. It's their own streaming service. They've had it for a few years. I don't know the pricing scale anymore. I mean, it might have changed since I was subscribed, which was 6 months ago, maybe. And you can go back and watch all the way into, you know, some of them into the 70s. They have footage from that far back. So all their big pay-per-view events, like WrestleMania, the first one, all the way up until the one from this year, every one of them on there. And so it used to be $10 a month. And I used to watch, of course, my wrestling from the 90s, but I would also watch some of the 80s stuff because I loved, you know, Jake the Snake Roberts, watching his stuff, and Roddy Piper and the Ultimate Warrior, like all those like 80s guys. Like I liked all of them, and I watched a lot of their stuff on that service. And so back then they didn't really need the stupid, crazy, shocking storylines. They were able to tell stories without all that stuff. So kind of in a way, like some of that stuff is better than the 90s because they didn't really need all these writers and all this, you know, storytelling. They did that without, especially Jake the Snake Roberts.
I mean, there was still a lot of that storytelling that was going on. And it was always very cheesy, over the top. It's like, I'm here to defeat him, you know, brother. If you don't get off the stage right now, I'm going to punch your face. You know, and it was these very dramatic, you know, fight scenes that never happen like that in the real world. But for a moment, we just kind of suspended belief and believe that, oh, they really do hate each other and they're ready to fight. So.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like thinking back, I didn't watch a lot of it. So the stuff I did watch, I didn't watch full, you know, episodes or whatever. I would just watch kind of like highlights and like certain matches and things like that. But yeah, I guess there was a lot of cheesy storylines, especially looking back. I don't know what year it was. I think it might have been early 90s or late 80s, but the gobbledygooker. I don't know if you remember that character. The big, basically a guy in a turkey suit. And he came out of an egg once on a wrestling show. This egg was sitting there. No one knew what it was, and it hatched, and here he was, a gobbledygooker. It's like, what? Really? I think it was like a Thanksgiving thing, but like every now and then he would pop up. And then they had cheesy characters like the Brooklyn Brawler, who was basically just some guy in like a torn baseball shirt. And he came out and like hit you in the head with a stick or whatever.
Right.
So there was a lot of goofiness there, yeah. But I did get to see some of those. Like I did get to see Hulk Hogan in person, but it was late in his later years. It was in 2002 was the first time I saw him. But it was still kind of cool. It's like, that's Hulk Hogan. No matter how old he is, it's still him. Like, there he is. So that was really cool. And it's definitely something I might try to watch some. I don't subscribe to anything right now, but it would be nice to maybe go on YouTube and watch some old clips. Kind of continuing on with the whole theme of stuff my dad would like. And actually, I downloaded the Candy Crush game on my phone, which I never played Candy Crush, but today I played it. Just because. Like, that was one of the, it's funny because it was one of the most annoying things. I would be in the corner, like, not in the corner, but I would be sitting on one side of the room watching either a movie or, like, whatever it may have been. And he's sitting over there, like, I'm just like, stop it. And then now, today playing that, I'm like, oh, I love hearing that. You know, because it's kind of one of those things where, like, you don't want to talk to somebody, they annoy you, and then once they're gone, it's like you would do anything to hear it again. As bad as it annoyed you then, you would want to hear it again. So that's really the main reason I downloaded and played that game today. I played it for like 20 minutes straight, and just hearing those annoying sound effects again. But yeah, it was actually kind of fun.
You never know what you're going to miss, right?
Yeah, the game itself, though, I can't say it's too fun. It's a lot of just slide 1, slide 2, slide 3 candies, and then all of a sudden it's all this jumbled around, like things moving and flashing. It's like, I can't keep up with this. But it's just one of those things I wanted to do today. Oh, but good memories, though. You know, not a lot of bad memories.
That's great.
Yeah. I don't really know what I'm going to do to close the day out tonight. Part of me kind of wants to watch some wrestling or Flash or both, which is cool because, there was a few wrestlers in the Flash actually. Wrestlers more from the later 90s and 2000s, but still, I'm trying to remember that specific episodes. I know the more recent one was season 4 when Barry was in Iron Heights. If you remember the character Big Sur. Yeah, Bill Goldberg. He was one of the big ones when I was, young in the 90s, because I think he made his big debut in like 98, 97. And the big draw for that guy was like he was undefeated. No one could stop him. And eventually he lost. But I mean, it was a huge character in wrestling. And he's a huge personality on The Flash and in other movies he's done. There was also, who was it? Dave Bautista, who was also in Guardians of the Galaxy. He played, what character was he in? Or was he in Smallville? I can't remember if I'm thinking of Smallville or Flash. Maybe both. I think he was in Flash. I'm trying to think back now. It's like there was, some of my memories are getting mixed up. Because I know in Smallville, the Undertaker's brother Kane, if you remember him or not, he came around later on after the Undertaker. He had the red mask and the full red suit. He later took the mask off and shaved his head bald. He played the big monster like fighter guy in Smallville. Titan, I think, was his name. And then Clark had to fight him. But in Flash, the Atom Smasher was what season was that? I want to say 3, maybe.
Well, that would have been. Wasn't he there with Zoom?
It was Zoom, because it was in the early part of season 2. I remember now, because the Singularity opened and Zoom sent all these metas into Central City. I think it might have been the first episode of season 2 or the second. But he was the Atom Smasher, and he fed off of, what was it, radiation? or whatever it was. Anyway, that was a wrestler from the 90s into 2000s. I believe his wrestling name was Edge. You know, that was just his name, one word. He actually lives here now in my hometown.
Oh,
I've
really?
never met, yeah, I've never met the guy, but I guess I remember reading an article in the newspaper once. They had come into town for a wrestling show, and this is probably like 2008 or whatever it was. And he said he fell in love with the mountains because at our small little arena we have, it was really designed as like a smoking deck for all the smoke and like in intermissions and stuff. But you walk out there and you look and you see this crazy, like awesome mountain view. I mean, you see all the city buildings and stuff too, but you see the mountains in the background. And he said he stepped out there and saw that, and then he bought a house here, and he's lived here ever since. I think so. He's lived here for like maybe 10 years. I've never met him, but I've known a few people who've like interacted with him and encountered him in public, like at like bookstores and things like that. But yeah, I know there's been a few more wrestlers on Flash and stuff, but I can't remember. Goldberg was probably the biggest one, both physically and because it's more recent. I always wondered what happened to him in Flash, because you see that, of course, Barry sped him over to China, but I'm wondering, does he stay in China? I'm sure maybe he just gets a job carving coconuts or something. I don't know. Like, he probably just enjoys a nice retirement there in China. It'd be kind of cool to see him again.
To me, that always seemed like a really odd thing. I mean, I know that Barry had asked him where he would go once he gets out, and he had specifically mentioned China, but I don't know, the idea of getting dropped off in the middle of nowhere in a country that I don't speak the language with not a penny to my name.
Just
that might not
randomly
be the way that I would go about it. And it was raining too.
Yeah, and all these Chinese locals are gonna come out and like, huh? And like see this big, huge white guy that's like in prison clothes, like wondering like where did he come from? It's like, oh no, it's a monster. Like they wouldn't know. Maybe they killed him immediately.
Right.
Maybe he killed them. Like
maybe the final season, Big Sur finally makes it back from China and gets his revenge. He's like, you left me in Wuhan.
Yeah, in Wuhan. Yeah, he comes back. He's like, I was patient 0 for COVID. It's my fault that the world, and now it's like dark matter plus COVID has made me something else. I don't know. But yeah, that's and also about that, when Barry just kind of leaves him there, not only does he leave him stranded with knowing no one, having no money or nothing, it seems like a lot of things they did in that season was kind of hypocritical, because he gives Ralph these big speeches about how what was it they said that a hero doesn't do something shady and call it noble or whatever. I don't remember exactly how it went, but the message was, you don't do something against the rules, even if it's for the sake of good. You got to do it by the book and do it by the rules. That's why Barry stayed in prison and didn't run away. But yet they keep doing things that were maybe not so moral, like Barry had such high morals and standards that he couldn't break himself out of prison. He had to do it the right way. But yet with Big Sur, he's like, nah, come on, let's go. So then and there, he's already broken the law by escaping or helping someone else escape from prison.
I really did feel like they didn't treat I don't know why his name is Elongated Man. They didn't treat him very well at all. It seemed like they were always on his case.
Yeah. It's like they were kind of jerks to him in a way. I mean, they were nice, but like I said, it was kind of hypocritical. It was like double standards. It's like Barry's allowed to do this, but not Ralph. You can't do it because it's bad. You were a bad guy, and now I am like very displeased with you for doing that bad thing, because he planted evidence. He even learned his lesson and told Joe West, don't do this. He was going to plant evidence at oh no, I can't remember his name. DeVoe. Like, why did I forget his name? The big bad for that season that we're talking about. He was going to plant evidence, and then Ralph's like, "You can't do that. It's immoral. No. How dare you?" But then after all that, Barry goes and does all this questionable stuff, and they were the same way he broke out of prison. I mean, it kind of directly contradicts the earlier lesson of don't do bad things and call it noble. And the very thing that got him out of prison was he didn't want to break out the wrong way. He wanted to prove it and get out the right way. But yet they break him out of prison, essentially, illegally, because they get Ralph to shapeshift into DeVoe and say, like, I'm alive, look at me, Anna. But no, that's not him. So isn't that just as immoral as running away and phasing through the wall?
I think that ultimately Barry would have ended up spending the rest of his life running from the law had he escaped. Ralph going and impersonating DeVoe was really the only way they could legitimately release Barry. And Barry had been framed; he hadn't committed the murder,
Right?
And so, the idea that somehow they were going to, find a legal way to get Barry out of prison. I don't know. I do think, though, that you're right, that we really see Ralph. At some point, he starts lecturing. He lectures Barry about the consequences of that slippery slope. Or was it Joe? Joe was going to plant evidence.
Yeah, Joe was going to plant the evidence because he was going to plant the fibers from. I think it was fibers from Barry's carpet or something, and into DeVoe's house to prove that they were in his apartment. Which even then, it wouldn't have. Oh yeah, it would have. I was going to say it wouldn't matter because DeVoe was in his apartment because he got killed there. But the point was his wife. They wanted it to appear as though she had been in the apartment when she hadn't. But yeah, he gave him that speech like, "Don't do this. Don't do this." After everybody like kind of ran him down for doing stuff like that. But then Barry gets a pass. No one gets mad at Barry. Like, why not? I don't know. But another thing about the him pretending to be DeVoe, that does make sense. It's like, okay, well, that is literally the only way you would legally be released from prison. But then I thought to myself, they don't know how DeVoe is alive, but they know for a fact he was stabbed. And they know that Barry had his fingerprints on the knife and the blood was on his hands. But once they saw DeVoe alive, they're like, oh, never mind. Charges are dismissed. You could have still charged him for attempted murder. You still could have held him in prison for attempted murder. Because clearly, like, he was injured at some point. He may have healed and been better now, but he was injured at some point. He was clearly attacked by somebody, even though the court didn't know he attacked himself, but still. I always wondered why they didn't kind of stick assault charges on him at least. But I guess it was so shocking that, like, oh, he's alive and doing great, so what happened before must have been an illusion or whatever.
Right. Well, he'd been given a life sentence for murder, which is different than assault. And so, and I think that once you're accused of it's that whole kind of double jeopardy kind of situation. So
I guess since he was already charged and wrongfully imprisoned for murder, they couldn't turn around and charge him for the attempted murder of the guy who he never murdered to begin with, even though he had served at least a month in prison.
And I think essentially Ralph was like, I'm alive, so you don't need to imprison him anymore. He's essentially dropping any charges.
Yeah, I guess Ralph as DeVoe was like, look, I drop everything. He didn't do it. I don't know what happened, but he didn't do it.
Yeah. I will say the best thing was seeing DeVoe's wife's face.
Yeah, that was great because she had no clue. And she didn't even realize that DeVoe actually had manipulated that moment as well. Like he had that planned. Even watching it back, I'm like, wait, why? Why would he want Barry out of prison? He didn't really care about Barry being in prison. I don't think. I forget what his goal was and why he did that.
Well,
But
I think that he had the idea that he needed Barry to break the bus metas out of
mm,
that secure ward at Iron Heights.
yeah, that was a big part of it. But he could do it any time by himself too. So I don't know. Maybe because he didn't want to be tied up in it, he wanted Barry to do it.
Well, there
And there
were
was
there were
mm,
the meta dampeners.
right. Okay,
Those would certainly have affected DeVoe. So
that's true. And he knew the intelligence of Barry. He knew he would be able to get out. And then, yeah, I guess there was part of it after too. There was some reason he wanted Ralph. I think what it was he wanted Ralph to turn it into himself, so he could see for himself, like, okay, he's capable of. They wanted DeVoe wanted them to be so desperate that they would turn to Ralph to shapeshift into DeVoe, and he did that. I think so Ralph could learn how to shapeshift, and then Barry needed to be out of prison. He didn't really need to be out of prison, but it was like a side effect of him turning into DeVoe. And then once he could do that, then DeVoe himself sees it and says, okay, now I can take his body because he knows how to morph into me. I mean, that was all part of it. Like, he wanted that whole thing to happen to see if he could do it and condition him to do it. And that was interesting because at first I'm like, when I saw it for the first time, I'm like, oh my God, it's DeVoe. And yeah, I don't know if that character will ever come back or not. Maybe we'll see like a cybernetic DeVoe of some kind. Because the technology's in the chair still. She just pulled like the thing out of it to turn him off. So I think it's very possible, especially with Elseworlds. If you remember seeing Amazo,
right.
who's to say that one of the Amazo bots couldn't be a DeVoe, and you really couldn't hurt a robotic DeVoe, could you? I mean,
Yeah, I had kind of thought that perhaps that um, Ralph would have ended up keeping some of those powers or
yeah,
some of those personalities in himself.
you would think, because I still don't fully understand how powers that are controlled from the brain and from like different glands within the brain, adrenaline, and all these other things, all linked to the brain. So how could DeVoe carry over powers to a different body each time and still retain those powers with a different physical brain each time, unless his actual brain teleported into the next body? That was my theory. But if that's the case, then Ralph would never have been able to come back. So I don't really know how that worked scientifically, like how he was able to keep the physical powers only in his consciousness. Like, how is that transferable at all? But it's one of those things I think we have to just accept as a reality.
Yeah,
Like,
I
oh,
don't think we're gonna get. I don't think we're gonna get an answer to that question.
no, I think maybe DeVoe was the only one that knew how that worked. Because, imagine like what else he should have tried to get the Flash's powers too, probably, but I guess he didn't need them. I can't remember. They addressed that, but I can't remember. Wasn't really that big of a detail, but I was glad to see Ralph come back and not be dead. It was a big, like, oh, good kind of moment until like a year
I
later.
did feel that in all of it that um, the resolution to the story seems so very obvious.
Mm,
That the idea that DeVoe hadn't already thought of it and hadn't already considered a way of making sure it didn't happen, you'd almost think that he wanted to lose.
yeah, I mean, you would think based on that, or maybe he had considered it and just didn't consider the fact, like what his wife told him earlier in the season. Like, there was one thing you could not ever account for: how a person is feeling. So maybe he never even anticipated Barry being able to feel enough to where like he could convince Ralph and pull him out. Maybe he knew it was possible, but didn't think any of those people were capable because he didn't anticipate that they could feel strongly enough to make it happen. That could be part of it. Because otherwise, like, why would he? And how could he not see that coming? Like, Barry even going into his mind. I think he wanted Barry to go into his mind, and I think that's why he never attacked him to get his body, is because he wanted all those other powers. And if Barry got stuck in his brain, he would have his speed as well. Which he would have been unstoppable at that point. I mean, imagine a metahuman that could super speed, that had the stretching abilities, that had like the telekinesis, that could control, like, what was it, the poisonous gas, the technology, like pretty much everything possible you could think of, he could do. And that would have been dangerous. But it makes me wonder too, like, if all these other people died, why didn't Ralph die? And I guess it had to do with the elasticity in his cells being polygamized, as he said it. That was a funny line.
I love that line.
Yeah, my cells are polygamized. I can't get hurt. But I think that had a lot to do with it, and why he was the special one, and why he wouldn't actually die from that. But I wonder,
I do think that because he became the host, right? That as long as the powers in DeVoe's mind were being contained in his body, Ralph and his personality still existed. It seemed like it was only until DeVoe jumped to the next person that the host died.
Right.
So had DeVoe jumped to somebody else, Ralph would have been completely gone.
It makes me wonder, though, is DeVoe stuck in Ralph's mind still? I mean, because if you remember, they're having the struggle, and I guess there was some magical portal that when Ralph jumped through it, he took control and changed back, and then DeVoe's screaming as he's changing, "This is not my will, no!" And then boom, it's Ralph again. And then you see, digitize DeVoe in a chair, and they're just like, "No, not today." Boop, turned him off. So I was,
yeah. To me, it seemed like Ralph going through the portal was him reestablishing control over himself, right? Reasserting his consciousness, and essentially kicking DeVoe out and putting him back into the chair. And the chair held his consciousness kind of as an in-between place, in between bodies. And so Marlize going and taking that plug out essentially was like turning DeVoe off.
Yeah. I don't know. I wondered if, well, number one, if pulling the plug actually destroyed DeVoe or just turned him off. And then second, it was like, that's how I thought the show wanted you to think it went. Like, that was the point of the story, like his consciousness went into the chair. But I also, watching it again the other day, I thought, well, maybe it was just a backup. Maybe he had his consciousness or a copy of it programmed into the chair this whole time, and as a last ditch effort, like, activated it right before he changed. But I think maybe him touching that chair was like it pulling him into the chair. It would still be interesting to see, though, if like DeVoe were to come out of Ralph again one day, and how they would handle Ralph, considering the actor being fired. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle that. Because the season 6 it ended kind of abruptly with so we never got a proper ending, and so there's still that little bit of Ralph's story that never got finished,
right?
With when he was chasing Sue, his future wife. So I don't know. I think they're probably going to just have him shapeshift into somebody else and be like, "Oh, I'd rather have this face today," and just leave it that way until they write him out.
That would be the easiest way to solve it. Just like the face swapping that I think should have happened in Batwoman. I really do think that the shape shifting and have there be an accident, sort of like that whole thing about if you make that face, it'll stay that way.
Yeah,
There'll be a horrible accident, and he'll get stuck. with somebody else's face.
And that's kind of what they did on Legends, wasn't it? Where was it Charlie, the shapeshifter? Didn't she get stuck with that face? Or no,
Yeah,
something happened where magic or something like that prevented her from shifting again or something.
remember that Constantine,
Mhm.
right, and essentially trapped her in that form.
Yeah. See, that's what I think would happen with Ralph. I think they're going to get just a random new actor and then have him shapeshift for some reason. And then I don't know how they're going to cut it between if they're going to have, the original actor and then kind of like CGI his face for a moment to morph it into the new one, or if they're just going to have him walk off screen and come back as a different person.
Right.
But either
I'm sure they
way,
find a way. They'd be like,
mm,
"Who are you?" I'm
we can
Ralph
take
Dibny.
Ralph. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm stuck this way now, but
Right.
it'd be really cool if it was like Tom Cavanaugh. Like maybe he shifted into Wells, and then now he is Wells, but he's really just
Right.
Ralph, and there'd be two Wells.
If we didn't get enough Tom Cavanaugh on the show, he would then become, um, Ralph Dibny.
Yeah, and then or what if that's how we get Thawne back? What if Thawne kind of puts himself into Ralph because he was kind of running around like loose lightning last time I remember, and so what if he goes into Ralph's body, same like DeVoe style, and just takes over and shifts into the original actor's face. I can't remember his name right now, but the original Thawne from their old timeline or whatever. But if that actor came in and just becomes Ralph, that'd be a way to explain that. But I don't think they're going to do that because that would kind of kill off the character. And I think they're really going to keep the Ralph character.
I think I would start feeling really bad for Ralph.
Yeah, because it's like you just survived this, and now all of a sudden, like you've met this girl, and now you basically just became the Reverse Flash.
Yeah.
So that would be.
I think I feel worse for this storyline that they've been telling, that they really had committed to this relationship with Ralph, and with the departure of the actor, there's this chance that entire storyline is not going to be completed.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, they're gonna finish that storyline, and I don't think we've seen the last of Ralph. Like whether or not we get the actor again, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's impossible, but it's gonna be at least a few years if Flash stays on that long to get him back because the things he said and did, like I read a lot of it, and it's not good. And a lot of fan comments online, they're like, well, the whole character was about getting a second chance. The whole character was about redemption. Why can't the actor have the same thing? And I'm like, well, they do have a point. So I don't think immediately it should have been like, I'm sorry. Well, it's okay. We forgive you. It shouldn't have been immediate, but I think there should be a chance of redemption somewhere.
Yeah. I think I was frustrated with the fact that these had been very old tweets.
They were. I mean, they were 9 years old, I think was the oldest one.
Right? I mean, my gosh.
I mean, it is one thing, especially with the social climate of today, like knowing that you said that and knowing that it's still there. It's like, why didn't you do something to rectify that? Take it down, something. But then again, you say stuff when you're young and stupid, you don't remember that it's there. You forget your digital footprint. Like, does everybody go back and like clean those digital fingerprints? And like, no, not all the time. And so I guess it would have been hard to remember all that. But I mean, I don't know, some of it was pretty bad. So I don't know. Maybe he was young and maybe he did mature, but he was old enough at the time to really know this isn't cool. Like, don't do this.
But I doubt that he would have thought that comments that he had made 9 years before would end up catching up with him and costing him, a big job.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of I'm kind of like on the fence about it. I'm like, he should. I don't know, because it's like old, but then again, it's less than 10 years, so it's like, are you really that different of a person? Like, you're an adult when you say it, and then 9 years later, have you changed that much? Maybe you have. I don't know, but that's why I think there should be some kind of maybe a year off, and maybe the next year he can come back. Or I don't know. Who's to decide when is an appropriate amount of time?
Yeah, I don't know. I think what frustrates me, and it's a pattern we've seen happen a whole lot with these celebrities, is they get caught and
Mm,
uh, and they confess and give what could be a very honest apology, but it doesn't matter. They
right.
still lose everything.
Yeah.
Or you get people who are in that and they end up playing the "it wasn't me" defense, and
Mhm.
um, they never take ownership of it. They just keep lying. And what's unfortunate is we live in a day and age where there is no reward for honesty, and there
Mhm.
is no consequence for lying. You know, and
Especially if
we
you know the right
certainly
people.
yeah. So
Well,
for what it's worth, I hope that he learns his lesson, and I
mhm.
hope that someday they give him another chance.
Yeah, and then I guess that is with me too. It's like with the whole regret and that's why I feel more like he probably is legitimately sorry and wishes he could take it back. But sometimes there are certain things that you do or say that you just can't take back. And then
Right.
today, remembering my dad, there were several times, especially talking about the Candy Crush sound effects. I would get annoyed and just kind of like not yell, but like, could you turn that off? And like little moments like that, and then that led sometimes to bigger arguments and things. Those kind of moments that I wish I could take back, but I can't. So it's like you legitimately feel sorry for it, but like some people from the outside would be like, well, are you only sorry because you know like in my case, I can't change it. So was I sorry then, or am I only sorry now because knowing now what if I would have known it then, that that's what really regret is all about. Like if you knew then, would you have even done the thing? So I don't know, and I don't really beat myself up over these regrets and things. It's just it's lessons really. You take this bad thing that you might have said and kind of like try to apply it to where it's a lesson, like to not do that again. You'd like look at yourself and look back at it and think, I don't like that. And so hopefully he can do the same and say, look, I don't like the fact that I said these things. This is not who I am. I feel terrible about this. And maybe, do some work to kind of go the other way and help people who have been like harassed or, you know, treated less than someone else. I would
I,
like to
I
see him
do wish,
back on the screen again.
yeah, I do wish that there were more opportunities for people to, um, be rehabilitated
Hmm.
and not ostracized. That's what I that's what I really hope for.
Yeah.
And if you show your true colors, that you really weren't repentant, okay, fine. That makes sense. You really do deserve. That really is who you were. Um, and no amount of time has changed that. But
Right.
it is sad that generally speaking, so often you see people who they're really not given an opportunity to demonstrate if they've changed or not. It's just all over.
Yeah. And it is. It's kind of sad that some people don't learn from those mistakes or those things. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then turns around and does it again or does something either equally as bad or worse. Like Barry.
Right,
Stop messing with time. Stop it.
right.
Now. Stop it.
But I wanna.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess that's okay. Since you really
Yeah.
want,
You really want to. I guess it's okay.
right?
I mean,
And there's the theme of the entire Flash show.
yeah,
Is
you've got to. Hmm.
yeah, Barry can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, basically, it's like he makes the rules. I am interested to see the new Speed Force. because there's gonna have to be a new Speed Force. Because I forget what happened and how it died, but
COVID.
I really don't. It must have been COVID.
Yeah,
season
COVID.
6 is a blur.
Yeah, they put it in they put a little bit of berry in that quark sphere, and it had some COVID in it, and
Maybe.
that explains it. So
Maybe.
I know. I am eager for these new seasons to start. I feel like I'm kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel for these shows. I think I've just about burned myself out of going back and rewatching stuff. So I will be very happy when we finally get to watch some new stuff.
I wonder when Legends of Tomorrow comes back, because I know it's later than all the other shows, I believe.
Yeah,
I think Superman and Lois and Batwoman and then Flash. And I think there might have been another new show. I don't really remember. I'm trying to check it out and see if I can. I don't know. I can't find anything right now. I don't really know what to search for. Like Legends new episodes, and you get an article from like 4 years ago. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm excited because I don't remember the last thing on Legends, like the last thing that happened. It's been so long since I've seen it. It kind of like slipped my mind. I think Bebo was involved.
That too.
I think there's something about Bebo or I don't remember.
There was a season that came after Bebo.
Okay, that's right. That was the next, because Bebo was the big monster. It was like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and that had to be a Ghostbusters reference, even though it was a Bebo and not Stay Puft. It
was, and I will say that moment was brilliant.
I loved it. A lot of people hated it.
It was absolutely brilliant. I will say, unfortunately, I wasn't as big a fan of the kind of the supernatural Constantine episodes.
Yeah,
I like Constantine, but I don't feel like the Legends were the right fit. Their abilities didn't really seem to help out a whole lot. They seemed to kind of get in the way until Constantine had to come along and bail them out.
Yeah, it seemed like. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to find a reason or anything that says like, no, you're wrong, but it's true. Like they didn't really help him that much.
Yeah, right.
He helped them a lot,
right?
But they didn't help him that much at all. I mean, I never watched the show Lucifer, but I really thought that was a cool crossover with Constantine.
I've watched Lucifer, and ironically I like the show. So I enjoyed that little cameo.
I loved it especially because they got caught filming, and they were like, no, I'm not filming, I'm just visiting. It's and everybody bought it, and then boom, it happened. He's like, haha, tricked you. And it was surprising how well they kept some of those cameos secret.
Right.
Especially Burt Ward wasn't a secret. I loved that one though. I loved that one. Oh, and there were so many others too. Little ones that you wouldn't expect to see. Of course, the big one being Ezra Miller, but I mean, gosh, I really want to watch that again.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I think that's what we need to do next is we'll go back and rewatch Crisis, and then we will pick that apart. I don't think we've done that in a long time.
I don't think so. Maybe when it first happened, but then again, there was like a month break in between, and then this whole year happened. So I don't know if we really gave it a good go. So I need to finish Elseworlds and then dive into season 6. I might reactivate some Netflix because I don't have season 6 yet. And $10 is cheaper than like $20 to buy the set.
It is. Yeah.
And I can watch so much more because there's more shows coming out. I believe Cobra Kai season 3 is in like 3 weeks.
Yes, I'm ready for that.
I love the trailer. I watched the new trailer a couple of days ago, and all the rumors were true. Forget his name from Karate Kid 2, but the evil Japanese guy, the young dude. Goen, maybe, was that his name? or something like that. And then the girl, like his girlfriend in Japan, like she's back. The two of them are back. So it's like,
Oh, she
whoa.
is. Wow.
Well, yeah, they showed them in the trailer, and it's been rumored for a while anyway, but they show little quick bits of it in the trailer.
I wonder if Daniel will have his baby rattle.
I don't know. I don't know what's gonna. I know that him and the other guy, the Japanese guy, they spar a little bit because like in the trailer, it's like, oh, and he's like, no. And then there was like a set picture that I saw somewhere online where Daniel's laying on the floor of a dojo in Japan. So like they kind of have a thing. I don't know if they're gonna be friends. I think the whole point of the next season is going to be like Johnny and Daniel having to kind of work together to overthrow Cobra Kai, which is really nice because it's the first time you're really going to see them together. I know they teased it a little bit in the first couple of seasons here and there, but with oh my gosh, I'm just excited. And they showed little bits.
I'm ready for it. So I can't wait.
I really wish. Yeah,
I have to call it a night.
Okay. Yeah.
But I will look forward to catching up on Crisis and talking about that next week.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
then
hopefully I can
looking forward to
get to
talk about Cobra Kai once we both get a chance to watch it. So.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to try to watch that when as soon as I can when it hits, because I loved the first two. Absolutely loved it.
All right. Well, I will see you later.
Yeah. Have a good week.
All right. Thanks. It's been fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Talk to you later. Yeah.